What's going on, guys? Struggling to get 1,000 views in the mix back here with another video, and with one that I've wanted to make for a very long time. For almost 3 years now, I've discussed Michael Jackson, and we've all had a lot of fun, but as I grow and change, the channel's going to also. I want it to be a place where I can talk about some other artists I enjoy, and hopefully you enjoy them too, and we can just have some nice musical discussions. Today I'm going to be making a tier list with every favorite artist in my library. Some you've heard of, some maybe you haven't, and hopefully some new talent I can put you all onto. I want to make clear before, though, that this list is based on nothing but personal preference. I enjoy all of these artists immensely, and just because some rank low, does not mean that they haven't impacted my taste and creativity.
Schon gar nicht leicht.
Beady Eye. There are very few people that I talk to online and in person that have heard of Liam Gallagher's post-Oasis group Beady Eye, and I think that's with good reason. Their debut album was fueled with nothing but pettiness, and while 2013's B was quite the step in the right direction, there was just no success. There are a handful of songs that I will go back to, like Flick of the Finger, and all of their more stream stuff. Songs such as Beatles and Stones, Standing on the Edge of the Noise, give me a massive headache instantly. No one can deny that this is the most embarrassing point in any Oasis member's career, no matter if you enjoyed them or not.
Come on, take a chance and start anew.
Blur. Everyone's heard of feuds like the Beatles versus the Rolling Stones, Tupac and Biggie, NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. Nowadays, it'd be names like Chris Brown, Drake, or Kanye Taylor Swift. But if you're from the UK, you have to have heard of Oasis versus Blur. With Blur and F tier, you may be able to guess which side I'm on. I usually listen and go back to their 1991 debut album Leisure, which is really good and I recommend. But when it comes to other stuff that I constantly go back to, it's only the hits. Stuff like Country House, Boys and Girls, and the song you probably know from them, or the Big Time Rush sample, song number 2. Green Day. This was my toughest choice for a placement. This may be very low, but I also think it's deserved. With the release of Uno Dos Tres, Father of All, it's hard to look at their earlier and more iconic works such as like Nimrod and Insomniac with the same eye you may have had back then. American Idiot, 21st Century Breakdown both rank high in my top 20 albums of all time, but you know, the Green Day legacy is very, very hit and miss. Elvis Presley. Say what you will about Elvis, and I know the comments will, but he will forever be larger than life. I've visited Graceland multiple times. I love the atmosphere up there. I love Elvis, but I don't know if I can refer to him as an artist in the same sense as I do everybody else on this list. He has no songwriting credits, and I find a lot of his live performances lackluster, as I'm sure you do too. I usually find myself watching the movies a lot more than the music, but a lot of his songs immediately bring me back to the point in time where I discovered them. Call it a bias, call it a nostalgia, but the Elvis discography is charged with memories up and down.
Schon gar nicht leicht.
Queen started it all for me. They were my gateway into the classics. I never found myself digging inside of their discography when I was younger, but everybody owned that silver greatest hits album. And after the release of Bohemian Rhapsody in 2018, I found myself enjoying Queen less and less. Personally, I was just left with a bad taste in my mouth after reading reactions and the backstage politics and everybody becoming a Queen fan all of a sudden. They'll always hold a place in my forever expanding archive of music, but still, I mean, Queen hasn't been the same listening experience as it was at one point for me. The Talking Heads. Having just been introduced to this group last year, it's safe to say I have the most amusement listening to these guys. Talking Heads 77, another debut album, is my personal favorite, solely based on originality and their eccentric melodies. Frontman David Byrne is slowly rising on my list of favorite songwriters due to his ability to make the dumbest song lyrically entertaining with his performance. Joy Division. Here is my newest venture on the list, and I think it's the short discography that really does it for me. Joy Division only released one album and a handful of singles before frontman Ian Curtis's death in 1980, but what was left behind is just as impressive and thought-provoking as bands that overstayed their welcome.
I've been waiting for a guy to come and take me by the hand.
Schon gar nicht bei Stift.
You are my soul. I am music.
Wings. I enjoy Wings a lot more than a majority of the Beatles fan community. I'm not going to defend London Town and Back to the Egg because there's some works that just don't do much for me, but on the other hand, you have Band on the Run, Red Rose Speedway, Wildlife, and one or two more albums in this portion of the Paul McCartney career that are some of my favorites of all time. And some of these songs in the discography may be forgettable, but where Wings was right, it was always right.
Schon gar nicht bei Stift.
Wallows, the first of only two bands on here that haven't broken up yet. They're also the newest group on this list. Wallows is an indie band that I really enjoy. Their debut album, Nothing Happens, contains hit after hit, along with their newest single, Okay, that has grown on me a ton. The only reason these guys didn't make it into A tier is because it's a little hard to judge this early on. But they've all got good heads on their shoulders, and I can't wait to see what comes next. John Lennon. Solo John Lennon can be overrated by Beatles fans around the world time and time again. Imagine and Double Fantasy are certified classics and some of my favorite albums of all time. Once again, Plastic Ono Band, very high on my top 10, but what loses me in this discography are, again, some of the middle albums. And with all due respect to John and his creativity and his songwriting, I just feel like this tier is the perfect place for him.
Well, we all shine on. Everyone, come on. Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy.
David Bowie. I know. He should be on A tier. The only reason I put David here is the fact that a few albums in the middle of his career fall short with me. Unlike somebody like John Lennon and the Wings discography, I can see myself growing into liking these later Bowie projects, so I decided to not judge it too harshly. The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust is my second favorite album of all time, and Station to Station, along with Heroes, they follow very close behind. Liam Gallagher. Liam Gallagher's post-Oasis career has had hit over hit, but none of the songwriting is as emotionally impactful as his brother Noel's. Liam has the tunes, Wall of Glass, For What It's Worth, One of Us, but the personal messages and meanings are lost between the 3 or 4 co-writers on each song. And don't think I'm downplaying Why Me, Why Not, or 2017's As You Were, because both albums have very few to no skips, and As You Were is the best comeback record of all time, but I just can't put him in A tier because
today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you.
Oasis. Yeah, this one was hard to justify. Easily my most listened to groups these past 12 months. Oasis has so many hits, but enough misses to knock them down an entire tier. Though no complete album is a dud, their discography shows an easy-to-see downcline in creativity and originality. I personally love Don't Believe the Truth and Heathen Chemistry, but really, 39 minutes of pure silence as an official track on your album? I'm not even gonna begin with songs like Born on a Different Cloud, which again, like Beady Eye, give me an instant headache, but don't get me wrong. As much as I love Oasis, I love Liam, I love Noel, I love this discography, I just couldn't give them A tier.
You can tell everybody this is your song.
Elton John. Much like Oasis, the bad albums in no way outweigh the classics. It's just that there are so many lackluster or even boring spans in the career of Elton, such as like Leather Jackets and Victim of Love, that dent his overall discography out of shape. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is in my top 10 favorite albums of all time, with Honky Chateau trailing by a few spots, but I think anyone can agree there's no denying the legitimacy of Elton John and the impacts of the majority of his works. But some just don't do it for me.
I'm still standing. You wanna love to last forever, one that will never fade away.
Paul McCartney, obviously excluding Wings, solo McCartney leaves us with classics such as Ram, McCartney 1, Pipes of Peace, New, and more. These albums rewrote how I viewed not only solo Beatles careers, but solo careers in general. Every album in the McCartney archive has a type of charm that even someone like John Lennon couldn't replicate. Noel Gallagher's High-Flying Birds. I may be the only one on the entire planet of Earth to rank Noel Gallagher's solo efforts over Oasis, but something about these first three albums, and especially the first one, rank high above Oasis's prime for me. Even though they're not on par with the albums, even the last three EPs that Noel's released last year have some great songs, and he's everything that Liam is missing, and everything that made Oasis so great. Michael Jackson. Yes, the reason I'm here. Michael Jackson is what made me appreciate music in the first place. I've known his name longer than anyone on this list. Even though most viewers would probably put him in S tier, I couldn't justify that because his discography is not perfect. Invincible is lackluster, and the Motown solo albums aren't flawless either. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Thriller, History, Off the Wall don't automatically put Michael in A tier, but I mean, it's just short of S tier. Here is the best of the best, the greatest musician or musicians in the history of music, the most influential group of all time. That's correct, 21 Pilots. No, I'm kidding. It's obviously the Migos. In all seriousness, the only S tier spot has to go to
Hey Jude, don't make it bad.
the Beatles. It's impossible to try and say anything about the Beatles that hasn't been said already. There's no skips, there's no duds, even every bootleg is worth listening to. Michael Jackson introduced me to music, but John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison are the people that made me want to create it. There is a Beatles song for every mood you're in. There's a Beatles song for every feeling you can feel. Everyone will comment and say, oh, you ranked them too high, but I'd argue that they're above S tier. They're the Beatles! That was my list. Disagree as I know you must, but after carefully examining my choices for a week, I feel as though I made the right choices. To maybe inspire you a little bit, I've created a Spotify playlist that will be linked down below. It has at least one song from every artist on this list, so you can make up your own ranking. Explore them a little bit more, though. I am excited to see what you all come up with in the comment section. Maybe make your own with your own favorite artists. I'll read them all. But I'm more excited to see how mad the comment section will be that I put Michael Jackson in